Hey guys, welcome to the RAMZPAUL show. It is Monday, December 16th. I always have to look down because I forget the date. And thank you so much for being here. I love being with you guys. If you're new to the show, welcome. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube or Rumble or on X because I stream concurrently on YouTube, Rumble, and X. And you can find me just Ramsey Paul on all three platforms. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to get involved with the show and ask questions or have a comment, YouTube has Super Chats, Rumbles has Rant, Power Chat below here. They provide a feature. I really appreciate that. Power Chat's pretty cool because you can use it day or night. And it queues up. I just have it there and I will do that. And yeah, what else here? Oh, yeah, just a little bit about the show. We do this Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. I'm still experimenting with it because I decided to shake things up, do a little bit different type of shows. I might do this show on Thursday during the day because I got some feedback. A lot of people love it at night, and I think the main show is going to be at night, but maybe Thursday I will do a day show. I will see. We will see. It's going to be, the schedule's going to be a little bit different next week. I still got to figure that out because it's Christmas week. And so I'll have to see what happens there. So Christmas may be a little bit different. But on Wednesday nights, I have a show called Happy Homelands. Alicia's been on that. I hope you guys like that. Have a lot of fun with that. And Friday nights, I do this show kind of open forum. People can call in. And then on weekends, on Sundays, I have my roundtable for people in GroupApp or Gumroad. You join for that. And if you haven't noticed, I tend to update my Substack frequently. I write some articles, kind of get up in the morning, write an article, an essay, and you guys could check that out too. So busy times, and I hope you guys are having a great Christmas season. I think I got all my Christmas cards out, so I was a good boy this year. We had a lot of fun this year. We poor Button, our dog, Session and I's dog, we had her dressed up and had a little Santa hat on her, and we took her to Santa Claus at PetSmart. It was like really cringy, but kind of cute. And this weekend we had a great small Christmas party or just a gathering of some people. And Sasha outdid herself, really wonderful food, and we had a great time. Dave and a friend of ours in the Fort Smith area and his lovely wife, they joined us. It was a lot of fun. And another guy, a couple other guys we knew. So we had a good time. I hope you guys are having a good time. This is a great time of year to get together with fellowship and family. And I hope you guys are all doing that too. And we're kind of a community too here. So it's good to be with you guys. And the show, I've changed the format of the show over time. It used to just be going through all the news. And I decided, yeah, it's a little bit better to just drill into like the top topics. So I usually take 5 topics and we will discuss them. And I put them in the description for today. So we'll kind of follow that format. But if you have questions about other topics, you're free to put them in and I will definitely get to them. And I want to do a shout out to K-Max. K-Max, you probably see him a lot in the chat. And he's a good real life friend. And K-Max, I got he sent a sausage and cheese type spread. It's really cool. And I appreciate it. The truck came and went down my big hill. I'm like, what the hell's that? Button was barking and I saw the guy and I got that. So I was excited. That was a great surprise. The only thing I hate about this time of year is it's too easy to overeat and there's just too much sweets and I got to just start, limiting what I do because there's all this temptation. We have a big party. We have a lot of like cake left over and Sasha made these really, I don't know what they were called, like ginger balls, just delicious and all sorts of stuff. So come January, I got to tone that down a little bit. Hey, I already got a power chat from SJ Shady. Hi, Rams. Who's your favorite Trump cabinet pick? Will you miss Lloyd Austin? The Biden administration, they didn't even miss Lloyd Austin. Lloyd Austin was the defense head of the Department of Defense. And there was a time he had to go into the hospital for some serious surgery. And the Biden administration, they didn't even know he was missing for like a week. Then someone said, "Hey, where's that big black guy, the DEI hire? What, has anyone seen that guy around?" And everyone's like, "No, I haven't. Have you?" "No," because he probably doesn't do anything. And then they found out he was in the hospital. He was, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but he looks kind of dumb. And he was there for, the diversity pick. He's good for comic relief. I don't know. My favorite, I think, of the Biden administration was Jen Psaki. Was that her name? And she always would say, if she wanted to answer a question, it'd be, "We'll circle back around to that sometime." She never did. But I kind of liked her. She was the redhead, right? Before they had the Canadian black lesbian or whatever. So, yeah, it'd be good to have some new picks. My favorite cabinet pick. I don't think Steve Miller's in the cabinet, but he's probably my favorite person. I do like the Department of the Border Czar, Tom Honan. He looks like a tough guy. And so those are good picks. So those are probably my favorites so far. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm going to be optimistic, and you can't stop me from being optimistic at Christmas. Yeah, I will get black-pilled next year when Trump falls short. I know it will happen, but for now, over the Christmas season before Trump gets inaugurated, I'm gonna be optimistic. I'm gonna say things are gonna get better. They may not, but I want to have that attitude. There's living your whole life black-pilled is not a way to go, right? Yeah, there's a lot of bad things, and we got to talk about bad things, but, trying to pull misery forward, like, "Oh, it's just not going to get any better. Oh, we're going to get a war with Iran. Oh, drones are all going to sodomize us, or aliens are coming. Oh, World War III is coming. The dollar's going to collapse." Yeah, one of the advantages of age, I've been through all this before, all the doom and gloom, and usually things get worse, but it's usually just slow. It's usually not dramatic. I mean, sometimes there's dramatic things like 9/11, but in general, it just slowly kind of starts to suck. It's not like this big dramatic thing. All my life, I've heard, "Oh, the dollar's going to collapse. Everyone's going to be, take a wheelbarrow full of dollars to buy a loaf of bread." It doesn't happen. It hasn't happened. Yeah, inflation's gone up, but it's not like that. And it's not Mad Max or anything. Everyone pictures that. Oh, when I was young, when I was in out of high school and into college, it was, "Oh, why even bother going to school? We're all going to be dead in a nuclear war." It was just like that. I even thought back then, I'm like, "Wow, you're a lot of fun type people." So we would just go to a party, have a keg, and enjoy ourselves. And I think that's the way to live. Don't get too black-pilled about everything, is my suggestion. All right, well, let's just get into the topics I have tonight. Is Trudeau. He's the governor of the 51st state, I think. He's not been a very good governor. Trump may have to replace him. We'll get into that. And then we had a school shooter. Whenever there's a school shooter, I like to kind of back off on judgment, because you always hear fake things and fake manifestos are released. That's one of the things you got to be careful with, I've noticed anymore, is people for engagement will just post, they'll just make up a manifesto that's fake. So we got to be careful with that. They're talking, the Democrats want to eliminate the Electoral College. Trump talked about the post office being privatized. Then I want to talk a little bit about the Trump press conference. Maybe we will watch a little bit of it. So if you have questions, though, just feel free to send a rant in or a super chat or a Stream Elements. They have a feature, or Powerchat. I do appreciate that. All right, we'll go to our friends up in the Great White North there. It's not so much the Great White North anymore. Isn't it more like the Great Indian North, right? There's a lot of Indians now in Canada. All right, let's take a look at this. I think this is one of the opposition leaders to Trudeau.
Mr. Speaker, just to underline the chaos we're faced with here, the finance minister resigned the day she was to present the fall budget, which was going to contain a massive deficit overrun. The job then went automatically to the industry minister, who immediately resigned, like on the spot, which then went down the line, and the next person in order was the famous two Randys.
This must be a Canadian inside thing. I don't know who the two Randys are, but it sounds like a total screw up. Everyone's resigning. And I'm like, what the hell is this, Canada? I mean, this guy looks like he's from Pakistan or something. And I didn't know they had many blacks in Canada, but oh well. And this is the conservative side, I guess.
And they're not available to do the job either. We're now less than 2 hours away from the fall economic update. Why won't the Prime Minister have the courage to come in here, present it himself, and put it for a confidence vote tonight?
Yeah, I don't know how, this is a little different than we do it in America. I'm not even sure how this works. I guess I should study it. We have like elections every 4 years, but a lot of European countries, and I think Canada, the government can lose confidence or something like that, and then they have to resign, or I'm not sure how it works. It's all alien. I'm just an American. I don't understand how this stuff works. But somehow Trump kind of caused this. He kind of set them in, and he kind of bullied Trudeau. Remember, Trudeau came down to Trump's place, and Trudeau started to whine about potential tariffs. Because Trump said, hey, you got to get the drugs under control at your border and the illegals. I didn't know. We have a lot of illegals that are coming over from Canada. I know we did from Mexico, right? There was Operation Wetback. So is it Frostback is what we call Canadians that are coming over? I don't know. We do have a lot of Canadians come over. They're good people mostly, but we do. But he said, you got to fix that or I'm going to put a tariff on you. And then Trudeau was whining about that. And Trump says, shut up. We'll just take over Canada and make it the 51st state. We'll make you the governor, though. So Trudeau went back to Canada with his tail between his legs. And then the last thing I saw, he was like really cringe. And he was saying, I'm a male feminist. Yeah, girls, if any guy says they are a male feminist, run the other way. They could be a serial killer. Those are strange birds that say that. And so let's take a look a little bit more. Here's some more reaction to it.
This is as serious as it gets. The finance minister quit hours before she was supposed to do this, and she doesn't have confidence in this prime minister. No one does. This man is a disgrace, and we need an election now.
So, yeah, I guess they're calling for an election. I'm not quite sure how this works, but I think if they lose confidence, they have to have like a spot election or something. But it looks like Trudeau is not very popular there. And here's some more of this. Let me take a look at this. And we have this guy with a turban on. And they're not Muslims. See, I think this is Sheikh, right? Sheikh, I think they call it. That's an area that's in borders Afghanistan, kind of in India, Pakistan, that region. I think that's what you call these people. I think the clue is because his last name is Singh. I think they're all named Singh, just like all Muslims are named Muhammad. Sheikhs, I think all males are named Singh, S-I-N-G-H. I could be wrong, but I think that's the case. So just in leader of Canada's new Democratic Party. What happened to the old Democratic Party? This is a new and improved, I guess. Jagmeet Singh. What the hell? How'd they get him in charge of that? Calls on Trudeau to resign, cites Trump's tariff threats. Trump bullied Trudeau into resigning will be the funniest thing ever. That would be funny. Singh was seen as last of the major holdouts to support Trudeau. All right, let's see what he has to say here.
People are having a very hard time paying for groceries. young people can't find affordable housing. And beyond that, we have the threat of Trump's tariffs. And that's putting hundreds of thousands of jobs in Canada in danger. And instead of dealing with issues that are important for Canadians, the Prime Minister is dealing with fighting in his own party. It's clear that the Prime Minister cannot continue. Will he resign today? Yes or no?
I saw someone on X say, and I agreed with this, if we take over Canada as the 51st state, we should deport Trudeau back to Cuba. Back to Cuba, where his daddy's from. And that will solve that situation. He shouldn't be governor anymore of the 51st state.
Mr. Speaker, the NDP leader is absolutely right. This cannot continue. This Prime Minister cannot.
I've heard this guy, Pierre. He's a good speaker. I kind of like him. He's probably a cock like a lot of the Republicans, because I think they're all for like mass immigration and replace other people, right? I don't know what the differences are that much, but
Go on like this. Housing costs have doubled. Food bank use has doubled. The debt has doubled. Gun crime has doubled. And now we face troubling tariff threats from a president who can see weakness coming from a mile away.
yeah, that's kind of a compliment for Trump, really, saying that Trump really can see a weak man or a weak position. And that's actually true. I think that is whatever you want to think about Trump. I saw an interview with Tucker. He had one of the foreign minister, I think, of Russia on. And when describing Trump, he said, Trump is a strong man. And that is the case. He has a strong personality, and he's kind of larger than life.
The Prime Minister must leave this job, but there's only one person who can remove him, and that's the leader of the NDP. Will he put the country ahead of his pension?
So I guess they're calling on the leader of that party to remove Trudeau. I don't know. And would it make a difference if Canada has a new leader? Trudeau's been a disaster. He's been the woke leader. Just sucking up to every group that's not white, the male feminism, totally in bed, maybe literally, with the whole LGBTQ lobby. Canada's just really crazy. In fact, there was this one case in Canada where some town decided not to celebrate homosexual month. No, they're like, nah, we're not going to do that. And the guy got arrested for like a hate crime because you got to celebrate sodomy in Canada. Otherwise, you go to jail. It's just crazy how woke they become and oppressive. And, they blame Christians because they took care of Indian kids, not India from the dot, but the feather ones 100 years ago and provided them shelter. And because of that hoax, they burned down a lot of churches because they claim that these the churches, they killed all these Indians, and they didn't. They were helping them. Trudeau's been a disaster. But will that happen? Will it be any better? I don't know if Canada can really be fixed. It's really a shame because Canada is kind of like, even more so than Britain. I've never really considered Canada to be like truly a foreign country. They're kind of like our little kid sister or something for America. In fact, most Canadians, they mostly obsess about U.S. politics. And a lot of people that you see, even these e-celebrities, how many are Canadian? It's a disproportionate amount. We got to talk about the CQ, the Canadian question. It is the issue. They come over here and then they take jobs away from American e-celebrities. Like Laura Chen, she's Canadian. She comes down there. Who else? Lauren Southern, right? They're all named Lauren, all millennial girls. There's all this Canadian problem. So that's what the Canadians do. But, I'm like, why don't you just stay in Canada and worry about your Canadian stuff? But nope, they just focus on America. Because I don't think much happens in Canada, except they import a lot of Indians, and it's it's sad what's happened. Because I like the old school Canadians. I used to watch the Red Green Show, if you guys know what that is, when I lived in Michigan. It was quirky Canadian humor, and I like hockey, so it's sad what's happening to Canada. Let's see here. I got a couple other power chats. Lucas T. Rams, do you think this is a professional or not? Democrat Supreme Court Judge Ketanji Brown now starring in a Broadway play. Yeah, I saw that. And I'm not going to play the clip just because it will have music and YouTube doesn't allow copyright music. Yeah, she's a joke. This is what happens when you just put someone in. I don't even know if she can read. This is where we are. There was a Caligula supposedly was trying to put his horse in the Senate as the consul. I don't think that ever happened, but he proposed that. This is the equivalent. I think a horse would be more dignified than her. She's an example of what we need to clean up. But yeah, she's juking and jiving to some Broadway play when she's a Supreme Court justice. The movie Idiocracy is coming true. Hardee's wants to talk to you. Thank you. Hey, Rams, do you think Trump will start a strategic Bitcoin reserve? Do you hold crypto? Yes, he says he wants to do a Bitcoin reserve. And yes, I hold some crypto. I don't have a lot. Let me just see what Bitcoin it is. It's a lot more fun now. Because years ago, I didn't know what I was doing. And I thought, well, I'll just spend a little bit of money. I spent like $1,000 and I bought a Bitcoin or something, but it's gone up a lot since then, that's for sure. So yeah, it's really gone good, Bitcoin. And so I think it's becoming more and more normalized everywhere. And that's one of the reasons I'm happy with Trump. I think Trump will be good for the economy with energy, with crypto, just in general, and get help with the regulations. He's not going to be a revolutionary figure, as some people on the left and the right think he'll be, but it will be, I'm happy about him so far. At least today. I'm going to be happy this Christmas season for Trump. And then later, I will complain about him. Don't worry. But for right now, I'm happy about him. All right. Thank you for the power chats. And we also have super chats and rants and stream elements. So that's Canada. We'll see what happens with Canada and with Trudeau and the government, because Canada is kind of an imploding country right now because they're importing. In fact, even Trudeau is now trying to slow down because they're importing all these people from the third world. There's a housing crisis. There's shit libs, budgetary deficits. You think we have bad inflation in America. It's nothing compared to Canada. They're full of wokeness. It's just a sad place what's happening. And it's sad because Canada is a beautiful nation, but it's really been destroyed and Trudeau's part of that. So I would like to have them get a Trump type of figure. I don't know if Pierre will act like that, but Trudeau needs to go. He needs to go. And I feel bad for the Canadians having to deal with this guy all this time. All right. The second thing we had today is the school shooter. And some of these school shooter stuff, I don't know really what to say about this anymore. But let's just take a look at this. What was weird, what started a lot of the rumors is the Madison police chief said they didn't know if it's a male or a female in regards to the shooter. And you notice how they put the little stars or asterisks, and that's for the X algorithm. Because I guess if you spell out the word shooter, it won't give you a bigger reach, or at least that's the theory. I think the whole thing is stupid. Spell out shooter. There's nothing wrong with the word shooter, right? Or dad. There's nothing wrong with the word dad. In that part of life, you end up dead. We don't need to censor all this. But they don't know if it's male or female. And that started this because how hard is it to tell? There's ways to tell. There's advanced biology. You can figure out if it's a boy or a girl. But we don't know. We don't know. So let's just hear what this update was.
Note, this news just coming in. According to law enforcement officials, the shooter was a female student.
And I think it was. It was a female.
And Steve, that seems rather rare.
Oh, it's quite unusual. Males are predominant. I'm searching my mind to see whether I've ever heard of a female shooter.
Well, wasn't there that trans shooter at the Christian school? Remember that she wrote a manifesto against cisgender people? But I don't know, was that a man pretending to be a girl? Or was that a girl? I think that was a girl pretending to be a boy. Am I right? It's very hard for me to keep track of all this. But I think that was a girl, a real girl, that pretended to be a boy.
In a school shooting. And so this is amazing. But I will say that while students of concern committees and things like that are important, we also learned that if you can delay the shooter 3 to 4 minutes at the most, you can usually interdict the shooter. So we can't just say a student of concern committee or a similar thing is going to solve the problem itself, absent some kind of hardening, because as we've seen so many times, people are reluctant to talk about things. And then you get something like this where a female student comes in and you wouldn't have even put two eyes on the situation beforehand.
Yeah, that is unusual. And I think what we're getting now, that the shooter was female, like a real female, not one of the new modern females that has a penis, because we have females that have a penis now, sometimes a beard. But I'm talking the old school, the heritage females, the old school, kind of like they had a classic Coke and a new Coke, the classic female, the type I had when I was a kid. When I was a kid, you asked a girl out for the date. You didn't have to worry that she would have a penis. But I guess kids have to worry about that now. But I think this was an actual real female. And we'll take a look a little bit more about this, the police press conference here.
And talk about how important.
Listen, see if we can pick it up here.
And I say, thank you for coming, and talk about how important.
You ever notice all police chiefs now are black? I think that's a George Floyd effect. Even if you're in a pretty much all white area, they will have a black police chief. It's just required now.
The media is to our community. But the truth is, today is a sad, sad day, not only for Madison, but for our entire country, where yet another police chief is doing a press conference to speak about violence in our community, specifically in one of the places that's most sacred to me as someone who loves education and to someone who has children that are in schools. So I'm gonna tell you what I know. I'll answer any questions that I can. There'll be a secondary briefing that our PIO will let you know about, okay? Today, around 10:57 a.m., our officers were responding to a call of an active shooter at the Abundant Life Christian School here in Madison. When officers arrived...
And this is kind of a weird development too, because it was at a Christian school. And I know that transgender shooter, she also shot up it was a she, I think, pretending to be a boy, shot up a school but I think she had already graduated, but she came back because she was mad because they didn't affirm her mental illness or whatever. But this is kind of weird because it seems like if you're at a Christian school, what really sparked this?
They found multiple victims suffering from gunshot wounds. We train on this almost quarterly. The last time we trained on this as commanders was approximately 2 weeks ago. The protocols are simple. Stop the killing, stop the dying, find out who's doing this. And the officers did that, and they did that adamantly. We had officers from around the county and around the state that came in support of this particular incident. Officers located a juvenile who they believe was responsible for this deceased in the building. Additionally, the officers began administering life-saving efforts to anyone who was wounded and making sure that those persons were transported. What we know is that a total of about 7 persons were transported from the scene to area hospitals for treatment. We know that at least 3 people have lost their lives, including a juvenile person. I don't have any other information about those persons who have lost their lives, and I'm not going to release that until we have, of course, spoken with family members. And
So that's what happened. And what they're saying now, it was, I've heard different things. First, a lot of people were assuming, because there's a picture of the girl, and this is what's sad now because of all the transgender ideology they're pushing. Now, if a girl kind of looks plain, people assume, oh, it's really a guy. So there was a rumor initially it was a transgender woman, meaning it was a boy that was pretending to be a girl. But I didn't think that was it, because that's in a Christian school. They would probably, well, I don't know, maybe they would allow it now, but they would used to, you couldn't be in the school like that. And now they're saying it was just a real girl, but she was like a radical feminist that hated men and wanted to kill men or something. A TERF type, where they, TERFs, they don't like transgenders, but they don't, because they see them rightfully as just men dressing as women, so they hate them, but they also hate all men. But she was only 15, so how did she get this ideology? So, yeah, it's sad to say, but we have a lot of broken things in this country, and I'm surprised we don't see more of these shootings. And it wasn't like an AR-15 or anything, it was just a handgun. So that's where we have right now the information we had about that shooting. I don't know what else much to say about it. We always hear the same stuff like, oh, we need more gun control. It's funny, they never came out with gun control with that CEO shooter, though. So they just come at it at different times, right? So it gets all a little bit tiresome, the whole thing there. And I think in a lot of ways, our society's not very healthy. And then you have the extreme cases. Most people won't do this, but sometimes you will have an extreme case where this will happen. And where we have a lot of toxic influences in how we live. And it was funny because this guy I was talking to at our Christmas party, we kind of geeked out and we're talking about Ted Kaczynski and the Unabomber and his manifesto. And there's some, are we really meant to live like we are now? We're more of tribal creatures, and I think it's breaking a lot of people's minds, and they're all online, and all the propaganda, and all the really toxic, like feminism. And then on the other side, you have groups that just hate women, and then you have all this racial hatred, and then you have these weird sexual ideologies. It's just not normal. And for a small subset, it damages a lot of kids. But on a very extreme small subset, they will go totally crazy and start shooting. And it'd be interesting if she was on psychiatric medicine. It seems like every young girl now is on psychiatric medicine. It really is. It's just really crazy. No pun intended. But they drug everyone now. And everyone's on therapy. Everyone's a victim. And they're taught, a lot of these girls, that all men are rapists and they're to be feared. Seriously, a lot of women now, young women, have this view of men. And it's a very harmful ideology that we've seen happen. So I think that we'll have to see more about what happens. Supposedly, she did do a manifesto on Google Docs, but she forgot to set it to private. Oops, woman's moment. So she was a real woman. And there was, like I said, a fake manifesto I heard that was put out. But I don't know. We'll see more of it. I don't really care to read it because she's probably halfway illiterate anyway. The only manifesto that was interesting was the Unabombers. Everyone else manifesto is just stupid. So don't do a manifesto. No one gives a shit. Unless you're very talented, people don't really care. All right. So that was a school shooting. And let's kind of pivot now to, let's see what else we had here today. Oh, we had the idea of to get rid of the Electoral College. So let's take a look at this. And redheaded libertarian, she's got some good takes sometimes. And she was saying the Electoral College is enshrined in the Constitution. It is. And just so you guys know what the Electoral College was and why it was there, the United States was never set up as a democracy. In fact, the word democracy is not in the Constitution, and the founding fathers were opposed to democracy. So whenever you hear Biden or the Democrats talk about my democracy, we got to fight for democracy, the founders of the country were opposed to democracy. They supported a republic, which is a little bit different. There's controls on democracy. Because in pure democracy, if there's no controls, 51% of the people could vote to kill 49% of the people. And well, that's democracy. You have to do it. This is the vote. You know, it's just ridiculous. So you got to have protections. And even in the voting, it needs to be restrict. I am pretty much against most forms of democracy. It can work in limited situations when people are fairly homogeneous, but even then it needs controls on it. And how the country, the United States, was founded, in fact, they called it these United States, not the United States, to be these United States, plural, where you had a bunch of states that were pretty much sovereign, but would come together for defense and trade. But otherwise, each state kind of did their own thing. I mean, they had to abide by certain rules in the Constitution, like they couldn't ban free speech, First Amendment. They couldn't ban your right to own guns, Second Amendment, or unreasonable search and seizure, all that type of stuff. But otherwise, you pretty much ran your state how you wanted. And each state then would have, in a presidential election, the states would determine who they want to send to Washington on January 6th, typically, to cast electoral votes. And so Arkansas, and how many electoral votes you get is based on the size of the state. So a big state like California gets more, small state like Arkansas gets fewer, and then they go to Washington and vote. And that kind of, it's a way to keep the state's power so you just don't have mob rule. And as redheaded libertarian said, and she's right, it would take a constitutional amendment to undo it. That means 2/3 of Congress and 3/4 of the states would need to approve the change. So the Democrats are introducing a bill, but again, the bill has no effect. And getting a constitutional amendment is very difficult. I remember they tried that with the ERA in the 70s. I remember that. I think Phyllis Schlafly was opposed to it. It was the Equal Rights Amendment for women. It was the big feminist thing. And they really try to get that through, but it's almost next to impossible because you got to get 2/3 of Congress, as she said, but 3/4 of the states, and a lot of states, they just won't do it. So this is not going anywhere. This bill is just it's a propaganda type of thing they're just putting out. It won't go anywhere. But it is interesting because you can explain to people how we were designed to be a republic, not a democracy. All right, so let's see here. I'm going to check my my Rumble. There's rants on Rumbles, and let me make sure if I got everything here. I accidentally closed my Powerchats. I get these tabs open, and sometimes I forget to. I accidentally close it. So let me look up my Powerchats again. I close that tab. All right. Events. All right. And if you have more questions, just send them in. All right. One more thing now we'll talk about is the post office privatized. So let's take a look at this idea. This was floated today.
Look at these images showing a mailman throwing mail into a popular dump site. 41 Action News reporter Charlie Keegan went to that site at 45th and Garfield and met with the man in charge of investigating dumping crimes.
Could you imagine? They get paid pretty well, and you almost can't get fired. And so instead of delivering the mail, he just dumps it in the field. Is that a black guy? Yeah, he is black. I'm not surprised. And if you go to, like in Fayetteville, the post office on up there, what's the name of that street? Joyce, on Joyce Street. This is a pretty white city, Fayetteville, but it's like all black, the workers.
Look at these images showing a mailman throwing mail into a popular dump site. 41 Action News reporter Charlie Keegan went to that site at 45th and Garfield and met with the man in charge of investigating dumping crimes.
Well, let me give you a look here around 45th and Garfield. The city calls this one of its top 3 illegal dump sites, and you can see all sorts of trash here. But what we noticed this morning, as you look down the embankment, down the hill here, actually a couple of representatives from the USPS are here, and they're cleaning up some of the mail that the city found here.
Look at these.
So the mailman is just dumping the mail. Way to go. And breaking, President Trump is considering privatizing the United States Post Office due to them losing over $100 billion since 2007. Yeah, I don't know how they would privatize it. I kind of get it. The only bad thing about privatization, and I was talking to Shasha about this the other day, is what if they decide not to deliver to certain rural areas because they can't make money on it? There's sometimes in the public interest that you need to be able to, I don't want to use the word socialize, but for the national interest to do it. It'd be like having an army, but let's just privatize our army. Well, I don't know if that would totally work. I don't think they'll be able to privatize it anyway. It'd probably be almost an impossible task. But yeah, this is a problem that they have at the post office. They're very aggressive in hiring minorities or non-whites. It's almost impossible to fire them. And so you get really poor service and malfeasance up and down the whole organization. So yeah, that should be an interesting thing. So Trump was proposing that. And something that just broke. Now we'll just turn to Trump. This is the last topic I wanted to talk about. And this just broke right before I went live. So we'll just take a look at this. But let's see. Trump is not eligible. Not eligible for immunity in New York hush money case. And let's just take a look, see if they have a video here of this. Thought they did. Where was this here? Oh, maybe we'll be here in a second here after the stupid ad gets off.
Hush money case. Judge Juan Merchan formally adjourned sentencing, asking both sides to expand on their arguments over the next 2 weeks. Trump's lawyers arguing the conviction should be thrown out to ensure a smooth transition. Prosecutors saying they are willing to delay sentencing until Trump leaves office to respect the jury verdict. Judge Merchan will have the final say.
Yeah, so I think the judge ruled that he's still convicted. He will have to be sentenced. But I'm trying to look at, let's see here, how long, that would be 4 years from now. And Trump right now is, I'm looking this up real quick here. Trump age, he's 78 years old. So when he leaves office, he'll be 82. And then they'll try to sentence him. But who knows what will happen by then. But there's some people that are still going after him on this ridiculous stuff. That was that where he paid that Stormy Daniels money, which was legal. There was no rape or anything like that. But they counted that as a legal expense, not a campaign expense, which I think they were right. But it was a kangaroo trial there, and it was pretty bad. All right, we'll take a look at a couple things in Trump's press conference. And I wanted to show this. This is outrageous what the Biden administration has been doing.
Sell it for 5 cents on the dollar, knowing that we're getting ready to put it up. And what they're doing is really an act. It's almost a criminal act. They know we're going to use it. And if we don't have it, we're going to have to rebuild it.
what he's talking about, there's all this building material the government already purchased for the wall and to continue it. And Biden administration, I don't think Biden knows much about it because Biden is senile. They're just trying to sell that off for pennies on a dollar. And as Trump said, it's just wasting money because they'll have to buy it back. It costs you, the taxpayers, hundreds of millions of dollars. So there's no reason to do it. It's just being done out of spite.
And it'll cost double what it cost years ago, and that's hundreds of millions of dollars because you're talking about a lot of wall. I built much more than I said I was going to build, but then after it was built, I said, you know, we can do some more because it's sort of like water, people flow through, and that will pretty much really take care of it. And what happened is they just, as you see, they're trying to sell it for 5 cents on the dollar, and that's really, that has nothing to do with a smooth transition. That has to do with people really trying to stop our nation. And all it means really is that we're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars more, not even talking about the time. Time would be pretty long, but we'll spend hundreds of millions of dollars more on building the same wall that we already have. And people have already come back to us that have deals at 5 cents and 4 cents, and one guy at 3 cents on the dollar, and they offered to sell it back to us at more money than it cost us to build substantially. Can you believe it?
Yeah, I can believe it. It's sad, though. So what they're doing, basically, these private contractors, the government is selling it or selling all the material that Trump wants to use to complete the wall. It's there. It's going to be used. And the Biden administration is saying, hey, we're going to sell this like pennies on the dollar. So all these businessmen are buying this material. Then they're turning around to Trump. So say if they buy it for a nickel, and they say, we'll sell it to you for $1. And this is the government. So this isn't Trump personally. So this is a way to make individual businessmen rich based on screwing the U.S. taxpayer. And this is only possible because of what Trump is doing. Not Trump, what Biden administration is doing. It is pretty outrageous, but this is a type of corruption, sadly, that we definitely see through our system. And this is just one more example of this. And I wanted to briefly go over some of this press conference that Trump gave, and we'll just take a look at this. He gave, one of the things I liked about Trump is he gives press conferences that aren't scripted. We haven't really had a press conference like this in over 4 years because Biden can't do it. Biden rarely did press conferences. And when he did, they had to submit questions beforehand and approved by the White House. And then they had Biden's response. You know, we saw it on his cards that told Biden what to say. There's nothing like that for Trump. Trump's able to get out there, take the questions, and dig into it. So I think that is refreshing to see. So let's just take a look at a little bit of this press conference, and we'll just discuss this a bit. Yeah, Biden is pure evil. Because what he's doing, as Trump said, this has nothing to do with Republican or Democrat. It's, you know, you have an election to decide what you're going to do. I know the Democrats didn't want the wall to be built, but whatever, we had the election and Trump's going to build it. So trying to sell off the material now is not really hurting Trump, it's hurting the American people.
Thank you very much. So it's an honor to be with you. We'll discuss a couple of points. We'll take some questions later if you'd like. I'm sure you might have one or two. I'd be shocked if you didn't. I'd be very impressed. But I'm honored to welcome one of the most accomplished business leaders of our time, the founder and CEO of SoftBank. Everybody probably knows. Very, very excited.
Well, this was funny because this guy's going to invest all this money in America, $100 billion. And then Trump said, why don't you make that $200 billion there? And it was just classic Trump being able to do that and get more out of it.
You're looking for.
And so that was, I think, a big win for Trump being able to do that. And let me just get through this ad here. We'll see what we got here. All right.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. I think that he was treated pretty unfairly. Now, I haven't seen the gravity of the rebuilding of that cathedral. It's magnificent, and they did a great thing. And they had great respect for our country. They treated me, meaning I'm the country, I'm the representative of our country, and we were treated with great respect.
This is at the Notre Dame. They rebuilt that cathedral. Remember that was burned down? I think it was done by some Muslim worker because they try to hush it. But good thing they rebuilt it.
And one of the people that came to pay his respects is, as you know, Ukraine, Zelensky. And he would like to have peace. He wants peace. Everyone's being killed. It's the worst carnage that this world has seen since World War II. I've had pictures of fields where bodies are lying on top of bodies. Looks like the old pictures of the Civil War, where just bodies are all over. Just if you saw those pictures, you'd feel more strongly about it. It's got to stop. And we're trying to get it to stop.
So this is good news. Trump really wants to stop the war in Ukraine, and I think he will. It has been a tragedy on both the Ukrainian side and the Russian side. Hate to see it, and I think Trump is going to force a deal here.
Well, we're gonna see. We're going to be talking. We'll be talking to President Putin, and we'll be talking to the representatives, Zelensky and representatives from Ukraine. We got to stop it. It's carnage.
What about the fear here at home of the drones? Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Can you comment on the drones that are flying around New Jersey ports? It seems like the American people have a big disconnect.
The government knows what is happening. Look, our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment. And I think they'd be better off saying what it is. Our military knows and our president knows. And for some reason, they want to keep people in suspense. I can't imagine it's the enemy, because if it was the enemy, they'd blast it out. Even if they were late, they'd blast it. Something strange is going on. For some reason, they don't want to tell the people. And they should, because the people are really, I mean, they happen to be over Bedminster. Want to know the truth. They're very close to Bedminster. I think maybe I won't spend the weekend in Bedminster. I've decided to cancel my trip.
Have you received an intelligence briefing on the drones?
I don't want to comment on that.
Have you been?
Do you have any reason to think they're a threat?
Two quick questions. First, on vaccines, do you want our?
Okay, the drone thing, I wrote my article about this, and the government has commented on this. They say it's a variety of things. There are legal hobbyist drones that people can use. The government, and they said police, they use drones now. And there's commercial drones like Amazon. And then you have the problem, because they're mostly at night, where people will mistake fixed wing aircraft for drones. Because if you see an aircraft coming directly at you, it will look like it's just sitting still up there when it's not. Because a lot of these so-called drones I've seen the photos of, they have lights on that are required by the FAA. So I don't think this is the Russians or the Iranians, because they wouldn't bother to put those lights up like that. And they, as Trump says, it's not them, and the government says it's not that. I don't think it's like UFOs from outer space. And then we had all this conjecture. Oh, it's probably the military knows there's some dirty nuclear bomb and they're searching for it. And that gets a lot of clicks, and I get it, but I don't think that's the case either. So I don't think it's just one thing. I just think it's kind of the, I don't want to use the phrase mass hysteria, but there's a little bit about that. It was sort of like the whole UFO thing never happened until after we got into the space race. And then the whole idea of space travel got in the public consciousness, and people really went with it. Everything, anytime they saw something in the sky, whether it's an airplane, weather balloon, even a star or planet they don't recognize, they assumed it was a UFO, and then we had all these stories. But there wasn't any, really, before the space race. And now we're in a similar thing with drones. Everyone's talking about drones. Drones are like one of the most effective military weapons now, as we see in the war in Ukraine. and drones are being used, tested like Amazon to deliver packages. And I think there's a sense of people, or I don't know if I want to use the word fear, but anxiety about drones. And so it's in the public consciousness now. So when they see things now, it's being blamed on drones.
RFK Jr. to revoke any vaccines?
No, I want him to come back with a report as to what he thinks. We're going to find out a lot. We're doing two things. We're going to have tremendous cost savings that will come out of this. That's a minimum. And we're also going to have, and I think, very serious discussions about certain things, whether it's pesticides. Europe doesn't use pesticides, and yet they have a better mortality rate than we do. They don't use pesticides. In fact, they use it as an excuse not to take our farm product. We spend billions and billions of dollars on pesticides. And something bad's happening. Again, you take a look at autism today versus 20, 25 years ago, it's like not even believable.
Yeah, the thing about pesticides, but if you don't use them because you have insects eat your crops, you have to have some way to protect your crops. Otherwise, you're going to lose a lot of your crops, and food is going to get a lot more expensive. And so I agree that should be looked at. And with the vaccines, it's kind of funny because of the whole COVID thing. Anyone that was doubtful about like the COVID vaccine, they started to call you an anti-vaxxer like myself. I was not an anti-vax in general. I think a lot of vaccines can be very helpful, but they need to be analyzed on a case-by-case basis. How effective are they? What are the risks? And tying vaccines to autism, well, that needs to be looked at. I don't know. I don't see the data, but the whole term autism is such a broad designation now. And the reason you see more people with autism now than you did when I was a kid is because they just expand the definition of behavior. Now everyone they tend to put on the spectrum. I saw some of the YouTube channels, special needs or special books for special kids. It's about a guy that interviews or discusses people. It's kind of like a freak show, but they disguise it as medicine. And these sad kids with sometimes horrible diseases or mental problems. But they also had someone like this girl with autism, supposedly, and she just came across as a normal girl. I just feel awkward in situations. Well, who doesn't? If you're in a new situation, most of us do. So a lot of times now, people that are even intelligent people, you could just think, oh, they're kind of nerdy. When I was a kid, oh, they're just kind of a nerd. Now they would be classified with autism on the spectrum with Asperger's. So I think the diagnosis has been way overdone. Because we used to have a thing of mental retardation, which wasn't a slur. It was just, years ago they call them idiots, morons. They said, no, some people are mentally retarded and there's mental retardation and we need to help them. And that became a bad word. So now a lot of these same type of people are just classified as autistic. So when you talk about autistic, it's a huge spectrum from people that are severely low IQ, like aren't even verbal, to people that could be brilliant, but they just, feel awkward in social situations. Like, I guess I'm that way. I sometimes feel awkward in social situations. So I think part of it is, it's gone up a lot just because how we classify things. Because years ago, they wouldn't classify that. Boys, they're very rambunctious in elementary school. It doesn't mean they have a problem like hyperactivity and they need to be on Ritalin. It's like they're boys. They just need to channel that activity. But now, oh no, they have a psychological problem. So I think there's a lot of misdiagnosis, or they're too easily diagnosing things. So that's part of the problem.
So we're going to have reports. No, nothing's going to happen very quickly. I think you're going to find that Bobby he's a very rational guy. I found him to be very rational. No, nothing. You're not going to lose the polio vaccine. That's not going to happen. I saw what happened with the polio. I have friends that were very much affected by that. I have friends from many years ago, and they have obviously they're still in not such good shape because of it. And many people died. And the moment they took that vaccine, it ended. Dr. Jonas Salk did a great job, so I don't anticipate that at all. But we're going to look into finding why is the autism rate so much higher than it was 20, 25, 30 years ago. I mean, it's 100 times higher. There's something wrong, and we're going to try finding that. We're also going to find out why are we paying more than other countries. And we were in the process of doing that through transparency and other things. We were doing a good job in that first term, and we brought it down. We got the $35, all of the different things. We got, we were the ones that got all of that done. Every one of those things, we got them done. I said, I hope I win, because otherwise somebody's going to take a lot of credit for what we did. But now what happens is we're gonna have a big conversation on price. Why is it that Germany and UK and other countries are paying so much more for the same box of medicine made in the same plant? Why is it that we're paying many times more? And I know the answer, because our government didn't do what they were supposed to do. And
well, the pharmaceutical answer is because we got to recoup our research and development costs doing that in America, and then we can give it cheap to other countries. But we got to challenge that.
what I put in place was terminated unexpectedly by the Biden administration, and they shouldn't have terminated it. It would have had a huge impact.
And Mr. President, one quick question on Ukraine. You mentioned that some of the areas are already decimated. Do you believe that Ukraine should cede territory to Russia?
Well, I'm going to let you know that after I have my first meeting. But a lot of that territory, when you look at what's happened to those, I mean, there are cities that there's not a building standing. It's a demolition site. There's not a building standing. So people can't go back to those cities. There's nothing there. It's just rubble. Just like when I knocked down a building in Manhattan, which is actually, this is worse, actually, because we do it step by step. This thing has just got demolished. And by the way, in those buildings are many people. Many people were in those buildings. You know, when they say the number in Ukraine is going to be a much higher number of death, is going to be a much higher number than you're hearing. You know, they're big buildings. That's what I did very well. And these are very long buildings. They're 15 to 20 stories high. They're massive buildings. I was surprised at how big. And they're flattened like a pancake. One or two bombs hit them and they just collapsed. And they'd say, nobody was hurt. Well, nobody knows who was in those buildings. There were a lot of people in those buildings. They're going to find that when they start doing the removal. Many more people are being killed in the Ukraine war with Russia than is being reported, and that includes soldiers. The soldiers are being, it's a carnage that we haven't seen since the Second World War. It's got to be stopped, and I'm doing my best to stop it. Yeah, please, go ahead.
You had a meeting with Mrs. Abe yesterday, but Japanese Prime Minister Mrs. Abe, and Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba is hoping to have a meeting anytime soon.
I will do that. In fact, I sent him a memento. I sent him a book, the Prime Minister. But Mrs. Abe was very close with our First Lady, with Melania, and she loved Melania's book. And she called and wanted to know if she could have. I was very close to the Prime Minister.
As an aside, Sasha read Melania's book, and she said it was pretty bad.
Shinzo Abe. He was great. He was a great man. And his wife wanted to know if it would be possible to have dinner. And it was just out of respect to Shinzo. And yes, I'd love to see the Prime Minister, and we will do that. I actually sent him a book and some other things for him through Mrs. Abe.
Will that happen before the inauguration day?
It could. If they'd like to do that, I would do that, yeah.
Sir, President Trump, just to clarify.
I have great respect for the, for the position. And if he'd like to do that, I'd be here.
Mr. President, you have the border that Ambassador to Japan will be George Glass. Is that your final decision?
Highly respected man. That's right. Highly respected. He's been an ambassador before. Did a fantastic job. We consider Japan very important. He's very highly respected. Okay, couple of
Which other world leaders have you invited to the inauguration? Which other world leaders have you invited to the inauguration?
The world leaders are calling me, and some
Are they
really
coming?
would like to meet. No, I mean literally, they're they're calling me, and I'll be seeing some of them. I think it's rude not to. I mean, it's hard to say I'm not going to see you. And I've spoken to way over 100 where they called to congratulate on not only the election, but the size of the election, the extent of the victory. And they were great. I mean, I spoke to over 100 countries. You wouldn't believe how many countries there are. And I'm trying the best I can to get back to everybody, but there are a lot of countries, and every one of them, literally everyone called, and it was very nice. So, yeah, I'd see some if some felt it was an emergency. I've seen, as you know, I've seen President Zelensky. He came to France while I was there for the cathedral opening. They actually had about 70 presidents and prime ministers, and in one case, a king. We saw some great people. I also met with William, and I was very impressed by William. I think William is terrific. I was very impressed by William. As you know, I met with him, too.
Are you
President Trump,
please,
question about that.
Did you invite Zelensky to the inauguration?
No, but if you'd like to come, I'd like to have him. I mean, I didn't invite him, no.
Are you
President
disappointed
Trump,
that
can I ask you a
Xi
question
can't
about
come to the
conversational
inauguration? Are you disappointed that China's Xi won't be at the inauguration?
I don't know that he won't be at the inauguration. I mean, I haven't really spoken to him about it. I don't know that, actually. I would say that if he'd like to come, I'd love to have him. But there's been nothing much discussed. I have had discussions with him, letters, et cetera, at a very high level. You know, we had a very good relationship until COVID. COVID didn't end the relationship, but it was a bridge too far for me. But if he'd like to come, I'd certainly be. He hasn't, just so you understand, he hasn't said one way or the other. Because a lot of people say he won't come, he will come. People think he will come, he won't come. It's something we barely discussed, just about didn't discuss. But I have had, especially through letters, some very good conversations.
Have you had conversations with Venezuela?
You know, because China and the United States can together solve all of the problems of the world.
It's interesting what Trump's here. He's trying to pivot to China quite a bit. And because China's got a close relationship with Russia. So it's interesting how Trump is being smart here and trying to pivot to China. I think we're going to see good things out of Trump coming here. I think he should do pretty good. But we will see. We will see what happens here going forward. And so that was part of the Trump news conference. I encourage you guys to watch that all. Again, it's refreshing to have a president that can get in front of people and actually talk to them. So that was cool. All right. We're going to kind of the holiday season. We'll wrap up a little bit early tonight. And I got a little animal video to take a look at. So let's just take a look at this here. And this is this is cute. This guy who just wants to be part of them. He's like, oh, guys, I want to come in with you, okay? And they're like, what the heck? Look how huge he is compared to them. He goes, yep, I'm just one of you. Yep, just want to hang out with you guys. What the heck? This is the funniest thing ever. Yeah, it's great to see that. Guys, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you for being here this evening. And I'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow night, another show. And I will talk to you guys later. So thanks for being here, guys. Bye-bye.